Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License with service to Professor Xavier's Academy for Gifted Children. We ask that you please fasten your headphones, secure your podcasting device, and remember, on this flight, if you break one of our seatback TV sets, we will have to report you to the Mutant Control Agency.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Jeff Purvis, joined by Max Singer and Rich Inman. How you boys doing today?
Oh, I love the Institute of Narcs that happens in the X-Men series.
But Max, how are you, bud?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be talking about Barton Academy and Alexander Page's The Holdovers today. A really phenomenal school for the gifted.
Oh, Max, you watched a movie again. This is TV.
Well, unfortunately, Max, we're not talking about The Holdovers, but because this week the new X-Men 97 animated series is coming out on Disney Plus, we have decided to take a ride back in a time machine, back into 1992, and talk about the original X-Men animated series. But before we do so, it appears that two mysterious women have boarded our plane saying that they are students at the Academy, and I think, low-key, I saw one of them shoot energy beams out of their eyes. Our guests this week are the hosts of the Relatable Nerds podcast, which you can find on YouTube as well as anywhere you listen to podcasts. Please welcome Ilsa and Kyra. Welcome, you two. Thanks so much for joining.
Hi.
And
Thanks
Ilsa,
for
welcome
having
back.
us. And thanks for having me back.
Yeah, Ilsa, we're really excited to have you back, and Kyra, a first-time flyer. Always love to have you join. Do you mind telling folks a little bit about what the Relatable Nerds podcast is all about and your relationship to the X-Men?
So we're just a nerdy pop culture podcast that started off of me and Ilsa just nerding out at work. And we find that a lot of our friends are not X-Men nerds, are not Spider-Man nerds, any kind of nerd. And we try to make our approach to summarizing the episodes and movies of what we watch relatable and kind of funny. At least we think we're kind of funny. But yeah, I would say we just kind of nerd out about everything, you know, and we try to make it a little bit more, I don't know, I guess easy to understand. Like you don't have to watch all 10 episodes of a season to get what we're talking about, you know? The easy way to be a nerd, I guess.
Love
I
that.
don't know. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I guess what is your two, when you heard that we were doing X-Men, what were you thinking? Because I feel like this falls right down your alley, but also maybe you have a little bit of a closer relationship than, let's say, Max, who just loves the memes. So
What can I say? I love the memes.
Ilsa, what's your relationship like with X-Men?
This is, definitely down our alley or up our alley. No, the saying is up our alley. Yeah.
Yes,
anyway,
it is.
don't worry about our alley.
I think it depends if you're going north or going south down the alley.
Oh, man.
Nobody needs to go south down the alley. No, we're fine. Well, I've been watching X-Men since I was a little kid. There was like a Saturday morning cartoon that I used to watch when they were like in high school. That I like really was into. Plus, like, I'm a big comic book nerd. If you know me from Relatable Nerds, you know that like I always say it like I'm like the comic book expert and Kyra is like the Star Wars expert, but we're both like kind of knowledgeable in a little bit of like both nerdy topics. So I love that X-Men. I love anything like Marvel related also. And I know that Kyra is a big X-Men guy too, so
Absolutely love that. Well, for those of you that came to listen to our podcast, for Kyra and Ilsa, your Relatable Nerds fans, welcome. For our frequent flyers, welcome back. Max, do you mind telling folks what this podcast is all about?
Here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learn a little bit more about how these shows came to be and were originally made, if they're effective pilot episodes and making us want to watch more, and if they could be made today. Go back and stream our old episodes from wherever you get podcasts. Check us out on YouTube and TikTok for now to see our smiling faces. And if it is your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard.
And Rich, what is your question of the week?
So I was thinking, because there's so many different characters in X-Men and all the different iterations of X-Men that have these like exciting mutant powers, I would love to know, what is the useless mutant power you would want if you were to join the X-Men today?
I'll kick us off. Why not? So I think I live a common inconvenience that we all live, which is you leave your house, maybe you leave your shared parking garage, and you have that thought, did I close the garage door or did I lock my house? And you are already 10 to 20 minutes away from your home. So my superpower for our listeners is I just know whether my door is locked and my garage door is closed. Now, can I do anything about it? No.
Okay.
That's too much power. I can only know if said things are locked or closed.
Jeff has
That's
the ability of a
useful.
closed-circuit TV camera.
Well, it's useful, but it's extremely silly, right? Could you imagine telling someone, like, yeah, I only know for my house if things are locked or closed? I
By
can't
God,
help you.
he's so intuitive.
I love it.
Rich, what about yourself?
I would love to have the immense power to go to any museum without getting so sleepy by the time I'm leaving. I don't know. I don't know what it is about museums. They make me so sleepy. I just want to do something for 2 hours and then do something else.
It's the climate control.
You think so? It's the extra oxygen.
I'm curious, what is your superpower that you've been thinking of? What's your useless superpower?
I have like 4, but my
A
there's so
complex
many
character.
useless things we could do, like just knowing like what your cat is feeling. Like they wouldn't be able to help you do anything. They'd just be like, I'm hungry or like I'm sick. Like I feel like that's a good one. Shadowcat's powers are so dumb and they're so useless, and I don't know why she's on an X-Men. She can just phase through walls. I don't need to keep talking, but I have so many ideas. I am gonna give my real answer. I just wanted to show off. My real answer is that I wish like I had the power of like a Karen. Like I would love to be able to argue my way out of like anything, like a bill, or like my cable bill is so high. I'm like, I just wish I had the ability to like talk to them about it. That would be ideal.
I love that.
That's amazing. Max, what are you thinking?
So I made a whole guy for this one. I got a
Oh, okay.
whole guy here.
He has a
Eat your
character
heart-
sheet.
Eat your hearts out,
Wow.
Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, because we've got a hot new superhero here at Marvel Comics, and it's 6 feet tall, man. By day, he's a mild-mannered 5'11" guy who has the power to increase his height by 1 inch to say that he's 6 feet tall.
Oh my god. So,
Oh my God.
Max, just a quick follow-up. What does said person put in their Tinder profile as far as their height? Because, under 6 feet is a no-go for a lot of people.
Yeah, obviously 6 feet tall.
All right, Kyra, we have given you your shot. We have given you time to think and ponder. What is your useless superpower?
Well, first of all of yours are amazing. I clearly thought way too deep into this question. But I guess mine, so I'm a bartender, and the bane of my existence is cleaning up and closing my bar and just doing little things that I need done quickly. So I guess it would be kind of speed, but I'm like thinking I would want to be able to produce ice cubes, like ice whenever I can when I don't have ice. So I don't have to like go during my shift and come get
Just,
it. It's like work.
Just
Yeah,
the cubes.
Yeah,
Just
Elsa
good
from
ice.
Frozen.
And
Elsa from
there's
Frozen working at
ice-
Sonic.
It's that would probably be mine. I liked Ilsa's though about the animals, like knowing what they're saying. Maybe even because I have a dog who doesn't like to wear the little booties when it snows, and he's in
Oh,
so much
that's
pain,
great.
but he won't wear them. So maybe mine would be to just have like invisible dog booties for my dog in the winter when the weather's bad. That would probably be mine.
These are so
Kyra, I just
sweet.
want to see you make
That's
the
the one.
long cube for highball glasses. Just
Oh,
like
yeah.
the one long ice cube.
I like the big round ones because then it could
Oh, the
technically be a
old-fashioned
little
ones,
bit.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that might be a little bit too useful though, because those could be a weapon if you threw it the right way.
Max
Well,
just wants to be marginally better at basketball.
yeah, just slightly better at his jump shot release. Well, Thank you guys so much. Thank you all so much for your answers. Let's talk a little bit more about X-Men, and let's start off with a quick synopsis. In the Marvel comic universe, mutants, people with genetically endowed superpowers, are persecuted by a hateful and fearful populace. One shelter from this is Professor Xavier's Academy for Gifted Children, which I think, based off of what we watched today, does a pretty good job of summarizing everything. But Max, I think a little bit more went into getting this made.
So tonight we are talking about X-Men, the animated series, and its pilot, Night of the Sentinels, Part 1, which originally aired on October 31st, 1992. Ooh, spooky, on Fox. And we're going to be talking about just the creation of this show, how it came to be, a few different names, and just how X-Men became the powerhouse it is today. So in the early 1990s, Marvel was not an entertainment juggernaut like it is today, and the X-Men were nowhere near a household name, despite their comics originating in the 1960s. In 1989, Marvel attempts an animated pilot for an X-Men series titled Pride of the X-Men, featuring narration by Stan Lee and an Australian accented Wolverine, a producer's attempt to capitalize on the recent success of the Crocodile Dundee franchise. The producer of that failed pilot, Margaret Loesch, takes a job at Fox, working with Fox Children's Network in 1990, and believes that the X-Men could still have major commercial appeal and commissions a second attempt at a pilot for Fox. Loesch enlists Chaim Saban of Saban Entertainment, a company that will blow up a few years later with their Power Rangers franchise, but for now is the force behind cartoons in the late 80s like Inspector Gadget and the Super Mario Bros. Super Show.
Hell yeah, let's go.
To direct and produce, they bring on Larry Houston to the project. Employed at Marvel Productions since 1981 and a co-director on the previously attempted pilot, Houston is partnered with TV writer Eric Lewald, who knows next to nothing about comics, X-Men, anything in general. Lewald is given a copy of the Marvel Universe coffee table book, some trading cards, and an X-Men board game as a 3-week deadline to turn in a first draft. Loesch sets a goal to create a show that is dramatic and more sophisticated, resisting the urge of product placements and attempts to sell toys that were the basis for animation in the 1980s. The writers lay out 26 episodes, knowing the show only has a 13-episode order from Fox. The series was originally set to air over Labor Day weekend in 1982, but production delays pushed it to Halloween, with several animation errors making its way into the broadcast. After the premiere, the show actually takes a 2-month hiatus, picking back up that January of 93, with errors corrected and the rest of the season being broadcast. The show premiered just before primetime at 7 p.m. on Fox before becoming part of its Saturday morning animation slate upon its rebroadcast in 93, and is considered the first animated series to air a season with a full narrative storyline rather than episodes airing in any particular order, which is huge because that's so much of what we see today when you think about like golden animation and things like, say, a Samurai Jack or a BoJack Horseman, these big narrative animated critically acclaimed series, and X-Men was the first to do that, so that's really cool.
Well, Max, thank you for that history of how this got made. Let's dive into X-Men, and we start off this episode with just a banger of an intro. I mean, I was jamming out to this song because the nostalgia instantly flew into my head. As far as like, if you've watched this show, if you don't remember, go on YouTube, find it, and you're going to be rocking out. But also, I don't know if I appreciated this as much as maybe, say, Rich and Max. You get to know everyone's name from the start of who you are going to meet.
Dude, I need every prestige TV drama to do what X-Men does, where in the opening credits, it just says characters' names in giant letters across the screen. Like, that would help me so much. If you want me to watch Game of Thrones, put everyone's name in giant letters in the opening credits so I know who I'm watching.
Do it for the first episode of Girls so I know who all the girls are.
Just Mad Men style. Don, Roger.
Ilsa and Kyra, I'm curious what your thoughts were on this intro that we got, and like whether it was the music, the characters themselves, and sort of a sneak peek into some of their superpowers as well. Like, what were you thinking seeing this maybe for the first time in a long time?
I mean, yeah, that theme song was gas. Like, I was hyped. I like the second it turned on, I was like, oh my God, yes, like we're getting into it. Like it really pumps you up. I was like, this is gonna be really good. I just liked the song. It just like, got me pumped up, and seeing the characters like flash by the screen and doing cool stuff. It matched with how like it was fun.
Yeah, I think immediately when you hear it, you're like sent back to the 90s. And it's very nostalgic and it's like very timeless. And you're immediately air guitaring because it's such a catchy song. And it was great to rewatch it and revisit it. I'm a huge fan of the song. Maybe one of the best animated songs ever. Honestly, it could be.
I mean, Ilsa, we've had you for 2 episodes, and I feel like both of them have just had awesome music associated with it, right? Like the Batman animated series, also just amazing music, and then this, I was like, okay, cool. Like, I am just expecting this, like almost like 80s hair rock style music the entire time, and I'm absolutely about it.
The biggest time capsule for me on this is when the theme song starts and at the bottom it says in big letters as well, in stereo. And it's just like, I don't know, it's such a simple thing, but it's like, oh yeah, like 30 years ago, we didn't take that for granted. This is a big deal. This children's animated show is presented in stereo sound.
So after this amazing intro, we get introduced even to characters that we're not going to see in this episode. If we just care about the pilot here, but if you want to see Magneto and that bunch, wait till episode 3. But as far as this episode goes, I really like, as far as a cartoon trying to capture the hearts and minds of children in the 90s, that we do it from the perspective of a child who looks like she is 23 in Jubilee. Because, like, having Jubilee and having the perspective of this young girl who's going through adolescence and puberty in some sense of the word and finding out about her powers and like what that is like to start to feel bits of discrimination is interesting. It's extremely different for the times, but also it's captivating.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that until you said it, Jeff, but yeah, I know it's Fox in 1992, but they went full Beverly Hills 90210 casting with Jubilee.
So I'm not obviously very familiar with a lot of other comic book franchises or anything like that. Are there a lot of other examples of the main protagonists being like vilified by the general public and like the government and stuff like that?
Kyra, just to bring you in, knowing that both of you are Spider-Man fans, I look at Spider-Man sort of, right? Like Spider-Man is a really good example of someone that, while certain characters vilify them, maybe the media or the press, there's still that idea of like they're a public nuisance of some sort. Like what are y'all thinking?
Yeah, totally. I mean, there was the whole like Civil War, the whole like Marvel universe does kind of grapple with that, like that they're not seen as heroes because they're literally not. Like and I feel like Kick-Ass kind of did that.
Kick-Ass does a great job with that.
Yeah, they did that. They showed kind of like what would actually happen. Like if you have superheroes, then you will create supervillains because we have to have like that balance, that yin and yang. And it's like, well, if we didn't have these superpowered people, we wouldn't have all of this, like these bad superpowered people to go with them. So that's what I think when I think of that stuff. And yeah, for sure Marvel does talk about that a lot because I mean, Iron Man hid his identity for a long time, pretending that the Iron Man was actually just his bodyguard. And a lot of people have had, like a lot of superheroes have had to kind of be under the radar.
That's the rich person wearing like a black unmarked baseball cap in public kind of thing. It's like, no, I'm not Jeff Bezos. He's bald. I'm clearly wearing a hat.
That's literally
A hat with like hair coming out of it would be funny.
Oh, I love that. That's the new Groucho glasses.
That boss we had, Elsa, at the bar we actually met at where we created Relatable Nerds, he was just like that. And he would just wear one of those like Urban Outfitters band tees that shouldn't be $80, but they are. And he would wear that, like a Yankees hat, but he would wear like the most expensive Jordans like you've ever seen. Like they were unobtainable and he would always wear those. And it was just like, Like
You've
he almost
never
did it
listened
on
to Black
purpose.
Flag.
Like, I think he did think it was Jeff Bezos. Yeah. Hate those kind of
Didn't
people.
he have like a picture of himself on one of his Jordan pairs?
Yes.
That's,
Yeah, it
that's
was-
diabolical.
That's insane.
That's diabolical shit right
That's
there.
so crazy.
Yeah, they exist in real life, and ew. But I
Seen
think
them.
also going off of this supervillain hero thing, it does remind me a lot of The Boys as well. And I think The
Mhm.
Boys does that whole scheme really, really well. And superheroes, as much as they could save us, they could hurt us. They have rage. Some of them have a lot of issues. Some of them don't know how to harness their power. They want to use it for good, but sometimes they don't know how and they're too powerful. So it is kind of like a very thin line that you could cross very easily on both sides. And
Yeah,
yeah.
Kyra, I think that's a great example that you said of superheroes like not being able to control their powers, because in Jubilee's foster dad's mind, his VCR being ruined is absolutely the worst thing in the world his
It's like $200.
foster daughter could do. Like, yeah, in the 90s, that's a death sentence as far as that man's concerned. And we get to learn a little bit, and by using the news broadcast, I really love this, of what's the climate of the world right now when it comes to the concept of mutants. Like, we see our only instance of seeing a real villain is we see Sabretooth, right? And if you're listening and you're like, wow, Jeff's really nerding out, yes, I'm very excited about this episode.
Yeah, because they don't call him that by that. They refer to him on the news broadcast as one isolated big hairy one.
It's
I get it. I'll trim it up.
So, not only do we get to see the perspective of it from the news, but we also get to see the perspective of how the world treats mutants by, like, almost this delightful mall scene where Jubilee runs away from home, hearing that she's been registered. Not only does a sentinel just break in through her home, but also we get to just see the world almost through, like, that quintessential 80s mall where they had an arcade, there are people shopping, but, like, also Jubilee breaks a machine and, hey, that's not really cool. And people start being like, oh, you're one of those mutants. Did y'all vibe with this? Did y'all vibe with the idea of, like, starting to see, like, maybe the troubles that someone might have trying to get accustomed to something new in their life?
I think it's an important part of, like, basically any superhero franchise that you have your coming to terms with your powers thing. It's part of, that's like the hero's journey aspect of it. My mind couldn't get off the fact that it felt very analogous to, like, being queer in the US. And that was like, I mean, it was hard to let go of that. And like any sort of moral panic in the US, it feels like this is what it's like from the perspective of those who are going to be persecuted.
Yeah, I agree. I was like, her dad sending his daughter to the Mutant Control Agency was like sending her to conversion camp.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I don't know. It was, yeah, I totally 100% agree with that. But I feel like she is not a normal kid and never was, because she's literally wearing rain boots and a non-matching rain boot, like rainbow, like around her house.
So she's colorblind.
And I was like, this girl, I was like, I know this is a comic accurate choice, but it almost felt like a director's choice to like subtly let the audience know that we're dealing with someone going through a tough time or something.
Oh gosh, that's a lot to think about. Poor Jubilee. I think just the age, you know, whether you're a mutant or not, and you're 15 years old and you're at the mall, like the hormones are raging, you know, your crush might be walking by, like there's a million things that could be going on. So I think you're just always on edge when you're a teenager anyway, to try to like figure out your style, even if it's rain boots and that yellow jacket, you know? So even if she wasn't a mutant, I think it makes it a little bit more intense. But yeah, Jubilee is just, she's got a lot going on. But I love her. She's awesome. She just wants to figure it out, you know?
Not only do we see, like, her figuring it out, we haven't even touched on the idea that she self-narrates her life, which is bonkers as far as a character choice.
Every
but I understand.
teenager does that, Jeff.
So one of the things that are, in this instance, while our main character might be Jubilee, our antagonist for the most part are these robots, these gigantic, terrifying things called Sentinels. That let's just talk about one of the reasons why I find them the most terrifying, and that is, did y'all notice that when they scanned Jubilee, they had all of her stats up as far as like, oh, she is 5 feet tall and she weighs 90 pounds and she is a Chinese American. Yeah. And I was like, this seems way too detailed as far as a robot knowing this about a child, if we're being absolutely honest. I'm curious if you guys caught that detail.
Oh, I sure did.
It picks up even more because when the Sentinel starts going after Jubilee, we get introduced to two of our main X-Men, right? We get to see Rogue. We get to see Storm just living their days. But when the robot scans them, I want to go on a small tangent and say this show does such terrors for body dysmorphia within the U.S. population because Storm is low-key 5'11" and 122 pounds. Are you kidding me? She's not eating.
She doesn't have organs.
If I flick her, she's gonna crack in half. That's absolutely bonkers mindset.
And at night, she grows to 6 feet tall, which is crazy.
Oh.
See, you laughed. You all laughed.
She changes the humidity. It allows her to grow a little bit. Seeing the mutant, seeing some of these additional characters, seeing Gambit start to mac on that woman who works at a card store. Did you guys enjoy that?
I just love that there's a Cajun superhero.
I'll say the mutant who's just like a combo of Boomhauer and Duffman.
Yeah.
my cartoon references.
I texted, so Ilsa and Kyra, I texted Max and Rich last night, and I was like, this might be one of the horniest shows that we've done on this podcast, because low-key, not only with the way that some of the adults are animated, but just, Gambit himself just being, with the woman being oh, is there anything else you need from me? She's leaning over that counter, she's trying, I don't want to say she's asking for it, but low-key, what is she trying to insinuate?
I'm a really big fan of the Gambit line. I like Solitaire unless I got something better to play with. It feels a lot like the Matthew McConaughey Magic Mike line, where it's like, the law says you cannot touch, but I think I see a lot of law breakers here tonight.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we see as far as what's the main draw? How do you keep children's attention? Because just character development, unfortunately, is not going to be the thing. And I want to talk a little bit about the action that we got in this pilot, because we got multiple instances of action, whether it be facing the Sentinel in the mall, or we even get the room in the Xavier Academy where they're basically testing out certain scenarios. I think that action tends to be a really good example of the animation style that we use for different pilots, especially children's shows. I'm curious, did you guys think this is up to snub now that we're in 2024 and it's been about 22 years since this pilot debuted? Or did Rich this not catch your attention and you started scrolling on your phone or taking a nap?
No, I did actually pay attention for all 22 minutes of this. But it felt like very reminiscent of the G.I. Joe Gem and the Holograms era of animation. So I don't know how. I feel like this is about 6 to 8 years afterwards, right?
Yeah, right about
so it seems like almost archaic at this point in 92. But if that's what they were trying to capture with I guess the X-Men's popularity was at the highest in the 80s, if I had to guess.
I don't know. The X-Men have always been pretty popular, in my opinion. I think, did they come out in the 80s, or was it? They seem so 90s style to me, It just seems something that would be birthed in the 90s. It probably is. No, it's really old. It's birthed in right when everything came out, because the original Squad was. But when it got
the first one was 1963, I saw.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was when it was kind of lame, though. And then it really reached its peak, I think, in the 90s, because that's when they started to hook up with each other and like travel back in time, and everything got like really weird. That was that guy, the Banshee. He was crazy.
It's like
Cable,
Riverdale.
Yeah. It was like Riverdale. It's I feel like it's a very like popular like girl comic too. Like if I was gonna tell a girl to read comics, I would tell them to read the X-Men ones because they're like very like relationship heavy, you know?
Interesting.
When
Yeah.
you put a bunch of strangers in a house together, you know,
Sexy.
real stuff happens.
Stop acting.
You have to handle.
Get real.
And then get real and get very real, except they have mutant powers. Yeah, it's such an interesting idea of like giving the character development, adding in the idea that they're not truly accepted within the place that they're trying to help in general. And after this gigantic fight where we not only get to see Rogue and Storm, Gambit try and fail to kill the Sentinel, and then finally Cyclops just come in and be like, "Oh, I got this."
Daddy saved the day yet again.
See, okay, Elsa, I have a bone to pick with you because Cyclops is the corniest motherfucker
More than
on
Gambit?
this show. Gambit's just trying to. Gambit's got a little bit of Riz in him, right? Like he's got a little bit
that-
to
that
him. I'm
Cajun
not.
Riz.
A guy just doing card tricks to impress women? That's not Riz. That's the corniest guy imaginable.
No.
He has a
But
cool
not-
accent. He does have Riz.
Cyclops has "Make America Great Again" energy. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna put that down and leave that.
No, he's
there,
got Joe Dirt
100%.
energy, and I love that.
And Elsa, you called him a daddy, and I want to just say that is unacceptable.
Listen. He is hot, but I do agree with you because he is overhyped. All he can do is shoot lasers out of his eyes, and for some reason, he's like the one that like wins everything and is the head of everything. And he was put as like the captain on this squad today. You know, he's like the main character, and it's like, why are you trying to make the lamest character the main character?
I bet it's
I
the
guess-
lasers.
I don't know. He's just like not good. He can't even control his light beams. He has to wear sunglasses all the time.
Oh, that
He's
just
got to wear his prescription glasses.
that just never stops. The lasers just don't stop.
He can't control them, so he has to wear glasses.
But the glasses can
All the
prevent a
time.
laser.
Oh, nerdy.
Yeah, his
I
power is
want that.
reverse LASIK.
So there's three other major scenes that we get in this show. And one is we get to be introduced to the Academy, where all these mutants live, where it sounds like there's more than just our main X-Men, but there might also be children that we didn't see because animation is super expensive. I will just give a commendation, Ilsa. Personally, my daddy of the week was Beast, just chilling out, you know, doing science stuff. He's upside down. He's looking great. He doesn't want to wear pants. Why would you want to wear pants or a shirt, especially if you're just doing work on your own?
Those were also Kelsey Grammer's demands on set when he played the role of Beast.
He also had a line so I wrote it down. It was like, he says, he's like playing with he's half naked, first of all. And then he's like playing with his beakers, and he's like, his experiment
This
is
is a kid show.
disconcerting yet provocative. And I felt like that was the writers describing him.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
That's great. What a pickup there. I think this shows like an idea of, if the Xavier Academy is going to be our home base, we have to understand everything about it, right? We have to be introduced to some of our other characters. Like, we really don't even get to meet Jean Grey other than like see her for a half a second. We get the iconic Wolverine in his full costume to this day that we haven't still yet seen on screen. And I think that it does do a great job of giving the audience that idea of like, okay, this was my there's a toy moment of this animated show of like, oh, you like what Wolverine's wearing? That's a toy. You like the big furry blue guy? That's a toy. Like, I don't know how you make Morph a toy, but like, here's a guy who can shapeshift. Isn't that fun and interesting? And he's like this little comedic touch that's probably funny for children.
Yeah,
Morph
is a little bit more of like an NFT kind of character.
But like, as this pilot sort of comes to a close, we get 2 other scenes, and you're probably thinking, wow, there's not that much plot to this. Well, it's a children's show. If we overdevelop, there might be too much. But when it comes to, there was one really funny scene that I have to call out. Jubilee runs away from the academy. She's going home. We find out there's nefarious forces at work. What did y'all think of her just running past the Sentinel like it wasn't there when it was right next to a building?
I have to give all the credit in the world to the writers and director on this for making giant robot try to be small and hide behind tree and building. That is so funny.
A great bit. Making giant robots have comedic timing is a brilliant decision on these parts, because they could just be mindless killing machines, and instead it's like, no, I have to be very sneaky. We just figured out the plot twist when for 6 Foot Man. He's hiding behind a 5'11" tree.
Like, what were some of the other things? Like, really, the only other scenes that we get is we see them trying to break into the agency to try to save Jubilee or try to get an understanding of what is going on at this nefarious or supposedly nefarious place. Like, what were some other things that you saw towards the end of this pilot that really caught your attention?
I saw them crawl into the place in the most homoerotic way I have ever seen people crawl across the floor. In the butt shots in this show,
Cheeked
it's
up.
crazy. Cheek
Like, even
up. The way he even when we were in the conference room, the way he was like sitting, like cheeks out. Like it was just, I saw it.
even Sentinel's a little bit of a thick guy, and like, I'm like, okay, I see you, robot. Like,
Someone had to build it. Someone had to build a thick robot.
Yeah, they're very, very intricately designed, and it's kind of like almost is this a kids show? Like, I know there's so many people who have been reading the comics their whole life, and like maybe they're adult when they're watching this, so I don't know if they're trying to appease like ages 5 to like 40 something, but yeah, it was hard to almost watch it again, because you're like a kid when you watch it the first time. Now you're an adult and you're seeing all these other things that you didn't notice when you were a kid. So maybe they just didn't, think they were going to get away with it. So
I just love the thought of someone going $50,000 over budget because the Sentinels have to have a dump truck ass.
I feel like they always do that if you're in a suit, though. Like, I think of The Incredibles, and everybody always jokes about the mom in The Incredibles. And, you see all those memes, and they're like, this is a kid's animated movie, Pixar.
Kyra,
like,
get out of my search history, please.
There's 10-year-olds
Yeah.
watching this. Why does she look that? I don't know. Good for her. She's killing it. But still, it was like, oh, someone really thought
Doesn't
about that
Iron
one.
Man always have like an iron butt built into the back of him
Yeah,
too?
It's so
He's
funny.
absolutely got something.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Well,
This is funny. This
we've
is a good
ended
topic.
our pilot, and we ended on like a cliffhanger of what will happen next. This is actually, today we're just going to talk about part 1. Part 2, readily available, also a tight 22 minutes as well. But at this point of the podcast, we always like to talk about what were some of the things that maybe you loved about this pilot, or that were like nice surprises about this pilot that maybe you weren't expecting or we didn't discuss while we were talking about the pilot.
I love the fact that this is like kind of anti-government and anti-cop a little bit. And I think that's like ultimately what a lot of the superhero dichotomies are that we talked earlier are about. It's just like, these people say that they're here to help us, but what happens when they don't control their powers and what have you? This seemed like the clearest example that I've seen, and bear in mind, I haven't seen a lot of examples of comic book properties. But I just thought it was like a very interesting message. Like, you're kind of rooting for all of them to succeed, which is like not normally a thing. It's normally like 1 or 2 superheroes that you're rooting for.
There was a joke, Rich, when you bring up that this show might have been anti-cop, where literally when the Sentinel breaks into the mall, a woman runs over to the cop and says, "Do something," and he says,
You took my wait
yeah.
a minute.
What do you want me to do? Arrest
Yeah.
them?" Which is, you know what? A great line. Like, that's a great piece
I
of
wrote in
writing
all
right
bold,
there.
it's like, cops are useless in the Sentinel Wars.
Yeah, she's asking Paul Blart to stop a 50-foot robot.
Ilsa, I'm curious from your perspective, any things that you loved about this pilot that maybe we didn't discuss in more depth?
I just really enjoyed all of the one-liners that were throughout like the episode. I mean, it's for kids, so you want it to be funny and like quippy. And then some of the things that like weren't supposed to be funny that just like were really funny. So like when Jubilee is talking to herself when she's hiding behind the building, and the Sentinel is like, she's supposed to be hiding from the Sentinel, but she's loudly speaking to herself like, he's gonna check for you. I thought that was funny. And then Rogue has like a final line where she's like, "You look nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs."
I love that idiom so much.
Going off of what Ilsa said about Rogue, though, I forgot about Rogue's voice and how much it sounds like Tommy Pickles. I wonder if it's the same person
Oh,
that
my
like
God.
voices Tommy Pickles as Rogue, because it's just such a unique kind of like raspy voice. And I was taken aback because I had forgot about it a little bit. And so when she spoke, I was just like, oh my gosh, like I totally forgot. So Rogue has always been one of my favorites, though. Yeah, I still have a crush on Cable. That was the same as a kid. Still have a crush on him now. So I really hope we see him in maybe like a Deadpool, or like they bring him with Wolverine or something. I also like the credits, how they explain what character's what, and they kind of give you like a couple bullet points. So like people who aren't familiar, they know
Their
who's
baseball
who.
card stats.
It's just like, yeah, it's like really helpful, you know? Like, so I forgot about the credits. Those are nice.
It just feels like a pilot more so than any other children's animated show I think we've done. You get background into the world. You get a POV from a character that's maybe not someone I necessarily associate with X-Men when I think of it. There's an actual arc and storyline. There's a real fun, like, Storm showing Jubilee the ropes sequence when they're at Xavier's mansion, which is just very piloty. You get that moment towards the back end of the pilot when they're all like in the woods going to do the rescue mission, where you get these little exposition drops about like, why are there mutants, our childhoods, our upbringings, and it just does a really good job in developing character in a way that I don't know if a lot of these shows do. And maybe you don't see that stuff as a kid. You're there for, you know, giant robots getting decapitated by lasers, but you can see all this other world building when you go back and watch it as an adult that I think is really well done.
Yeah, like Max, based off of my count, I think we meet 10 characters in this pilot, like 10 main characters in this pilot. And somehow we leave the first episode knowing a little bit, or just enough about each of them to be intrigued about them and their background. Just credit where credit is due. Like, we talked a little bit about the writing for this. I think it's on par with some other great TV shows, like, or animated TV shows at this time. But I really love the animation, all of the color, like making sure that it really pops off of the screen, and it is beautiful in like this sort of 80s nostalgic way, even though it was made in 92. I do want to bring up, let's just talk about it. Let's talk about wait a minute moments for this show, things that caused you pause. And I'm gonna just, you know, sort of focus a little bit more on that idea of what the fuck was going on with, in all honesty, the Sentinels knowing about the height and weight, and just like the way it really bothered me. It really bothered me because also it's just so unrealistic and so unnecessary as a detail. Like, there's so many other things that they could have done rather than be like, yep, women need to be 5'6" and weigh less than 100 pounds. Otherwise, you know, go straight to jail, sort of thing. Like, that bothered me a lot. But I'm curious, were there any things that happened in this pilot that caused you pause?
I loved Wolverine's defeating line to Gambit of just say uncle, which was like, I guess probably a little offensive to Cajun people, but like that's not a protected class, so it was just absolutely hilarious to me. That like almost made me pause the episode entirely. It's like truly funny.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I was like concerned when the Beast started using like the pipes in the place as monkey bars, because I was like, this man is like 300 pounds. Like, how are these pipes not just ripping out?
Yeah,
of the
and this is a
roof?
school. That's not that
I
well
want to know
built.
their pipe guy.
Exactly.
Max, what about you? Anything that caused you pause?
I know it's the general like concept of X-Men, but I feel bad for the kid who watched the show and went to their parents being like, "Is it true that if I'm different, you're going to put me on a government registry list?"
Yes.
Oh my
And
god.
it's like, no, you just like playing with like sticks and twigs and leaves in the yard. You're fine, Timmy. You're fine. You're not going on the list.
We do have one other question, and it is an in-flight question. So our in-flight question was sent to me, and it said, based off of the amazing different costumes that these superheroes and these X-Men had, what would your costume be? But more specifically, I am changing this question to, based off of your useless mutant power, what would your costume be? And I will kick us off. I'm just going to have a gigantic key on my chest. And yes, it is all spandex everywhere. And I think the key has to be gold and everything else is in black. And I am going to shine like a star. 6 foot man, what are you doing? And if it's not just a ruler, I'm really upset.
It's jeans that are a little too short.
Yeah, I'm wearing some of those like trendy ankle pants and a nice boxy tee and some Adidas Sambas. It's not really about the any sort of costume. It's just letting people know that I'm definitely 6 feet tall.
If Max reaches his arms above his shoulder, he shows a little bit of midriff.
Just a little bit of tummy.
Just a little belly button. Kyra, what about yourself?
Oh my gosh.
So your
I
power
don't
was
know.
ice cubes, just in case you forgot. You forgot.
I know, and I'm like, I don't know, like a blue suit. I'm trying to think of what I would wear. I immediately think of like I'm thinking of like a DC character, like a villain, but I don't want to look like Mr. Freeze. I don't want to pull like an Arnold here. I don't know, because the other dog booties one, I'm like trying to think of what I would do for that either. Maybe I would just be invisible. That would be my stick.
I
I
like
would just be
that.
invisible. And the
An
invisible
invisible
dog booty.
bartender.
That's it. It's like a haunted bar. There we go, Ilsa. That's,
I like that.
that's
See,
literally it.
that's the ultimate power. Then no one can try to wave you down and be like that guy at the bar. Like,
love
literally amazing.
Flash and a
Oh.
debit card.
Only invisible at the
can I
bar.
just close out?
like during your shift? Ilsa, what about
So
you?
nice.
I guess because I wanted the power of like a Karen, I would need like that short blonde wig, like the mom haircut.
A plus.
Yeah, I would need that. For shoes, definitely the Skechers that are supposed to make you lose weight. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh my god, yes, that Kim K wore for a little bit.
Yes, the shape ups.
Shape ups.
So Skechers shape ups for sure. I'm trying to think if I should go like leggings or jeans, but probably like those leggings from the MLM scheme.
Oh my god, LuLaRoe.
LuLaRoe leggings, and then some sort of like college that my son goes to, like his sweatshirt.
Oh
This
my
is
gosh.
that's a complete outfit. I loved it.
Rich, finish us off. What is your
So
outfit?
since I'm just my superpower is not being sleepy after going to a museum, I think I'm gonna go like Rambo with a bandolier of Red Bulls across my chest.
Well, thank you guys so much for your answers. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to submit in-flight questions at the end of the episode. But let's talk a little bit about the history of this show. So this show was 5 seasons long. and there were 76 episodes that spanned from 1992 to 1997. We talked a little bit about how this show is different from most children's cartoon shows in that it does talk a lot about heavy topics, such as things like discrimination, bigotry. They also end up touching on other big topics like the Holocaust, religious zealots, the AIDS epidemic, and LGBTQ plus rights and racism. The show was seen in a few different countries. Obviously, given the nature of some of the topics, there were countries that did not want this show. But Canada and Tokyo, Japan, specifically focused on this. No, Tokyo is not a country, and Max was ready to go after me really quickly. So what if I told you that because of the success of this show in 1992, that allowed for Haim Saban to actually get the green light for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. After they saw the success of this show, we're going to talk about the viewership number because it's absolutely bonkers. They approached Haim and said, "Hey, do you have any other ideas?" And he was like, "Power Rangers?" And they were like, "Let's do it, 100%. So what do we think this show topped off at viewership numbers in the 90s? Rich looks like he's doing mental math. Elsa just has a smile, and Max is looking off
thinking about
screen.
something different. I thought when you were gonna say, so you said that, he got the green light to go get Power Rangers because of all that. I thought you were gonna say that's why Obama got elected.
I mean, a little bit. He's one of the biggest campaign donors.
Oh my god.
Where you're going.
Well, for in case anyone was curious what the viewership numbers were,
Why don't you just tell us what movie you want to see?
Yeah, this show peaked at 23 million households.
Holy shit!
As a children's cartoon, which is insane. And it benefited from being that Saturday morning cartoons thing, but like even as a children's cartoon, that is a large number of households all watching.
The top viewership for last week's episode of Vampire Diaries was 3.6 million. That was the top. That was the most successful show in the CW.
So, a couple of other things. Yeah, there's a ton of spin-offs. X-Men 97 is coming out this week if you want a spin-off of this actual series. There also were comics that were specifically related to plot points on the show that were used, as well as a couple of books. There were some video games that used these depictions of the characters, such as Capcom versus Marvel as one of them, rather than the traditional comic book interpretations. And because of this show's success, in 1994, Fox decided to make a very specific investment in X-Men, which was buying all of the film and TV rights to X-Men to then debut the X-Men movie in 2000. So this show sort of catapulted a lot of things happening within the comic book world as far as movies after Batman and Superman had the success that they had. Now, here's a really interesting question that I just have for Max and Rich. This show has no awards because of one show that was on during the same time as it. What show do you think that is? Now think 1992 to 1997.
Batman?
Max?
Melrose Place.
Famously the same category.
The answer is The Simpsons.
Oh, shit.
The Simpsons.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes more sense than my answer.
The way that... So there's one large animated award show. That is the Annies. And the Annies only give out the awards to the winners. They don't really release their list of nominations. And so The Simpsons got all of them. They also do short form, but this doesn't fall into that because it's not a multiple story plots in one episode. Sort of like a Dexter's Lab or Cow and Chicken sort of.
I was
mindset.
completely going like daytime versus nighttime, or daytime versus like primetime Emmys and stuff like that. I didn't even realize that Annies were a thing.
The X-Men's number one villain, Conan O'Brien.
Because he's 6'3".
Well, that's the history of this show for now, right? We'll see what happens with X-Men 97. Fingers crossed for sure. But Rich, it is now time for your game.
Yay! So I know that like not every superhero or villain becomes the face of the franchise, and some actually missed the mark by quite a bit. And I wanted to assign each of you. I'm going to assign each of you a superhero, and you guys have to figure out which one is not real from the Marvel, DC, or beyond universes. Kyra, you are the Dolphin, a mammalian amphibious superhero with the ability to use their signature cry to communicate with humans and dolphins for hundreds of miles. Ilsa, you are Skate Man, a roller derby athlete and military veteran who laces up his roller skates to fight crime. Max, you are Big Bertha, a supermodel by day who can drastically increase her size to break out of imprisonment and crush villains. Jeff, you are Dog Welder, with the horrific power to weld dead dogs to villains' faces. Which one of you is fake?
Well, I know that Max's is real. Big Bertha is. That's Doom
The
Squad,
Great
right?
Ninja.
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking of another character from Doom Squad.
More powerful than 6 foot tall man.
I'm curious. Kyra, Ilsa, what are you thinking?
What was the Jeff's again?
Jeff's is Dog Welder with the. I hate to say this a second time. With the horrific power to weld dead dogs to villains' faces.
Yeah, Rich is making that up.
Rich, I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit of my feed. Can you say that one more time?
Oh
Oh
God.
my God.
Okay, so you're saying he wouldn't make that up?
No, absolutely not. Have you seen
I don't think
Napoleon?
anyone would make that up.
Yeah, Rich, I'm stumped. I don't know.
I'm saying Ilsa again because I want to get a bet in.
I'll agree.
It was actually Kyra's the Dolphin. I made up the Dolphin. You cannot. There is no character named the Dolphin. There is Skate Man. Skate Man is a former military veteran who gets convinced to join a roller derby team. The person who convinced him to join the roller derby team is killed, and he is a vigilante superhero after that moment. Big Bertha, obviously, is real. And unfortunately, Dog Welder is horrifyingly real. And I don't...
And what is Dog Welder's power again?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Thank you so much for the game of the week. Well, our flight is coming to a land, folks, and I have 2 questions for each of you. And one is, based off of the pilot, would you continue watching X-Men, the animated series? It is on Disney+. There are a ton of episodes to be able to watch. And secondly, do you think we need X-Men 97? Do you think that the world is yearning for more of this type of show with these messages that are sort of disguised within a children's animated TV show? Ilsa, I'm going to start off with you. What are you thinking?
The first question was, am I going to watch it?
Yeah, would you watch more based off of the pilot?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely do want to watch the rest of it because I feel like me and Kyra will probably recap the new one anyway. So, no promises, but it just seems like something we would do. So I kind of have to do my research.
Kyra, what are you thinking?
No?
No, Ilsa, go ahead.
Was there a part 2 to the question?
There was a part 2. So it was based off of watching the show, sort of getting an idea of the themes. Do you think we even need X-Men 97?
Oh, yeah, we need it. We need it. All those like little underhanded like sexual jokes and weird stuff that happened. I just thought it was so funny. We need it.
Kyra, what about yourself?
Definitely gonna watch it. I think it's gonna be great. They're gonna revamp it. It's gonna be, the colors are gonna be more colorful. It's not gonna look as 90s, and I think they have a lot of storylines they could go with. And I think we do need X-Men definitely right now because we do have the Deadpool movie coming out in a couple months, and Deadpool and Wolverine. are obviously going to be teaming up. Everybody's seen that trailer already and all the promos, and they're so funny in it. And I think just because Marvel hasn't really done a lot of X-Men and newer movies yet, they're starting to hint at them. I think it'll get everybody even more excited and kind of know more about the X-Men again in this way. And so when they bring it to an actual like movie setting, I mean, people will have even more favorites or get reminded of who their favorite character is. So.
Love it. Rich, as our comic book hater.
I'm a hater. Well,
what are you thinking?
actually a little bit of a hater. I would watch another episode of this. Do I think we need X-Men 97? That sounds like too many X-Men to me. You don't need 97 of them.
You're so dumb. You're so dumb.
Personally, I really like the message behind the show, and I think if that is something that people want to continue having for like a new generation of audiences, I think that's cool. I think it's a nice just like thing for people to associate with their own outcastness and stuff like that. So that I do see a lot of value in the franchise.
Max, what about yourself?
I would definitely keep watching more of this original series. I think the character development's really solid, and it works just as a pilot episode where I was like, I want to know more about these people. And obviously there's a part 2 to this episode we did today, so I want to see how that concludes. As for 97, I think it does serve a purpose. A lot of people's nostalgia from our age and a little bit older for this show hopefully comes through with that. My one hope is that it does lead into some of the messages and more adult themes that we've all touched on today versus just being nostalgia bait and remember 1992 humor, in which case it serves no purpose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would definitely keep watching more of this original series. I would be curious to see what the new one has to offer. It feels like it's a real like adult aimed series, and I'm curious to see how it does.
Yeah, and for myself, I would say that I'm definitely going to be watching more of this show. Yeah, I know the biggest shock of this entire episode. And then as far as X-Men
I don't know, the biggest shock for me was Dog Welder. But
oh, did you not get the description of it?
And as far as watching X-Men 97 or needing X-Men 97, yeah, if it fills that void of the animated TV show that has deeper messaging, that speaks to adult themes, that also decides to be the voice of reason when it comes to some of those bigger conversations, 100%. I would love nothing more for it to be under the disguise of a Marvel property that actually is having some larger discussions. Well, that is our flight, ladies and gentlemen. And before we go, I want to make sure that folks can find each and every one of us. So, Kyra and Elsa, first of all, thank you so much for joining us again. In case folks want to find you or the Relatable Nerds podcast, where should they be going? Elsa, where should folks go to find you and the Relatable Nerds?
So Relatable Nerds, you can listen to our podcast on anywhere you listen to podcasts. So whether that's Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, you can find us. We're also on YouTube. We have a reaction channel. We also post podcast episodes to that. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, I am Ilsa the Joe.
Kyra?
Yeah, she got them all. Relatable Nerds on literally every single platform. I think one of them has 2 S's instead of just 1 S, so watch out for that. Yeah.
That was our Instagram, has 2 S's. Relatable Nerds.
2 S's.
Yeah.
Max, what about you?
Well, first you can catch me at the mall buying some new Lycra to get these cheeks nice and lifted. You can find me on all things social media at Maxwell Singh.
It's
Rich.
Lululemon Man. You can catch me not trying to pitch the Dog Welder series to the DC people. And also on Instagram at Damn That's Rich. You can find original sketch comedy from Max and myself at Dadwagon Comedy on TikTok and now Instagram.
And you can find me really trying to fix my dad's VCR so he doesn't register me with the mutant registration agency. But if you're looking for me on social media, you can find me at RunJeffRun. If you're looking for the TV Pilot's License, you can find us on YouTube, as well as anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you have a question about the show or for our next episode, shoot us an email at tvpilotslicense@gmail.com or give us a call at 213-290-1713. Make sure to watch out on social media. We like to put out different sneak previews of episodes that we have, as well as calls for your questions. But with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again soon. And until then,
Say uncle.